Hey there, my name's Kevin. Welcome. Today we are going to talk about learning the notes of the neck. And when I say learning the notes of the neck, I'm talking about how to identify what note you're playing when you're on the strings, at the higher frets, the lower frets, it doesn't matter. They're all notes. So we did a recent video talking about what notes are and some other terms that you use when you're playing ukulele. So if you don't know what a note is, and there's some other terms that we're going to use in this video like fret and string and chord, you might want to go check out that video. I left a link in the description. Check that out really quick and then join me back here for this one. This video is going to be all about learning where the notes are on the neck, how to identify them, and we're going to talk a little bit more about a little bit of music theory, sharps, flats, and some other terminology that's going to help you just to kind of have a better sense of what you're doing and the why of all the stuff that you're learning on the ukulele. So get tuned up and let's get started. Well, before we dive in, if you could do me just a little favor and click that subscribe button so you're subscribed to the channel and you can find all of the other great content that we have available to you, and that little alert bell so you know when the next video is coming out. So let's talk a little bit about notes. And I know the term music theory might scare you away, but don't let it scare you because this is really going to be helpful and it's really, really easy. So in music, I need you to think about a very consolidated alphabet. We have the alphabet going from A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. And that's it. It starts over. But there's also a couple little in-between notes in there that we need to talk about called the sharps and the flats. And I'm going to do a quick demonstration on the piano to show you that in a little bit. But if you look at the graphic on the bottom of the screen, we're going to talk about what the notes are in music. So in music, we have 12 notes. You may have heard the term chromatic before. Chromatic means 12, and there are 12 notes in modern music, or all music except some other music in like India and some other places. They have some other notes and half tones. That's a whole other lesson. That's a whole other video. But in music, we know of right now, we have A sharp / B flat. We have B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, and G sharp. And those are the only 12 notes that you need to learn. What's really important is to know how to identify those notes here on the neck of your instrument. So when I say the word note, you've already known some of these before because you've played them. But when you put your tuner on your uke and you pluck your top string, you're playing a G note. So 4 notes that you already know, if you've learned the notes of how to tune, are G, C, E, and A. So those are the 4 notes that we play when we're just playing our strings. We don't have any fingers down on the neck. We're just playing G, C, E, A. Well, that's cool to know, and it's great to know. But what if I took my finger and I put it, say, up here on the 5th fret of the A string? Now that's no longer an A note because I changed the pitch, and you can hear that. Pitch is going up. The frets, we talked about a little bit in the terminology video, are just going to be labeled as fret 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I went all the way through that because you heard that key number 12. So 12 notes in music, 12 frets, there is a correlation. Those 12 notes that I'm talking about in music fit into those 12 frets. So it's starting to come together a little bit. We know the frets, we know the string names are G, C, E, and A, and now we know what the 12 notes are. So how do we place them here onto the fretboard? Well, let's check that out. So we're going to start with our A string, which is our open string. So I want you to follow along with me and do this at home with your uke. So first note that we have here is just plucking an A string. So when I pluck this note, I'm not holding down any frets. This note, and you can see if you have your tuner on right now, it'll read A. Well, you could keep your tuner on and it'll actually follow along with you as you do this. But now if I hold down, and I'm just going to use my index finger for this entire string, if I hold down the first fret and I pluck that note becomes an A sharp. So there's a term I want you guys to learn here called half step and whole step. A half step just equals 1 fret, and a whole step equals 2 frets. So when I went from open string to fret 1, that was either called a half step or just moving up 1 single fret. Either way, that's kind of just a little music term that you'll probably hear now and start working into your vocabulary. When you move up 1 fret, you're moving up a half step. When you move up 2 frets, open string to the 2nd fret, you're going up by a whole step. So my first move here was A. I went to the 1st fret, which is a half step, is now A sharp. A sharp can also be called B flat. So something to know here, there is that note in between A and B can either be called A sharp or B flat. It's one and the same. It's not 2 different things that you have to learn. So first note here is A, and then we have A sharp or B flat. When I go to the 2nd fret, I'm going up and playing a B note. And you can follow along on the graphic at the bottom of the screen too as we do this. So 2nd fret is B. 3rd fret, a little thing to remember here, in between B and C, and you can see this on the piano graphic that I do too, in between B and C there is no sharp and flat. That's something that's probably good for you to memorize. There's one other spot when we get down the neck, I'll show you where that happens too. So when we go from fret 2 to fret 3, our 3rd fret is a C note. Now that probably looks pretty familiar to you because when you play a C chord, which you probably have learned before, that's why it's a C chord, because C is a note within that chord. So this is going to start clicking for you as you start seeing where some of these notes lay here in the first couple of frets and how they correlate with the chords that you're already playing. So we have A sharp, B, C. From C we move up. Can you guess what the next one is? C sharp. So our 4th fret is C sharp, or we would call that D flat. Moving up another half step to my 5th fret, this is going to be the D note. So we have D on the 5th fret, and then I'm going to kind of cruise down here. We have D, 6th fret would be D sharp, 7th fret would be E, and then we have this other spot here where there's no sharp or flat in between E and F. So if you think about a piano, there's 2 spots on the piano in those 12 notes where the white keys sit next to each other. There's no black key in between, which is your sharp or flat, and that's between B and C and E and F. So right here we have, again, our E note, which is on the 7th fret. When we move to the 8th, we go up a half step. That's now F or F natural. Move up one more, we have F sharp. We move up another half step, we have G. And we're getting towards the end here. One more, we have G sharp on the 11th. And then we get to the 12th fret, and magically we are playing, what note? We're playing an A, the same note we started with. So that's a really important point to take back with you, is the same note that you start with will be this same note that you end with on the 12th fret. So that's how you check as you're going through here to see that you've done it correctly. You'll end on the same place that you started because we've done the chromatic scale, 12 notes from A to A. All right, so I thought I'd do a little demonstration here on the piano so you can see how the notes are actually laid out. So on the piano, this would be an A note. So the A note is the same as playing the open A string on the ukulele. So if we start here with our A note, the next key that we have available to us is this first black key. These black keys all represent the sharps and flats. So as I go up here from A, my next note would be A sharp. Or this note could actually be called B flat because the note directly to the right of this one is B. So going from A to A sharp is the same as going from B to B flat. So we have A sharp, which would be the first fret of the A string on the ukulele. The second fret would be our B note here. And then, as I mentioned, we have this space here on the piano where there is no black key in between the white keys. So we have the B note, and then we move directly to C. There's no sharp or flat. And this C note would be the third fret on the A string. And then kind of moving on here, we have C sharp or D flat. We have D here, D sharp, and then we move over here to E. And again, we have this space here where we have no black key in between, so there's no sharp or flat. We go directly from E to F, and then we move here to F sharp, G, G sharp, and then we end with our 12th note here, which is again A. So moving through from A to A would be the equivalent of moving through the 12th frets on the ukulele on the A string. So I hope this demonstration on the piano didn't confuse you at all, more so just to show you visually how these sharps and flats are all laid out here within the natural notes. So, all right, that was a little bit to digest there, I know, but what I want you to do is start by doing this with one string. So A is a perfect place to start because that's where the alphabet starts, and you can kind of go through here, and you should take a little time here to pause the video and just practice that. Say these to yourself. If it helps, you can also kind of make a graphic of your neck and write it down. If you're somebody that benefits from kind of writing things down to help kind of get them to sink in, that might be a good exercise for you to do at home to start kind of acclimating yourself with these notes here. Now, we're going to move on to another string. So we have A string, which is what we started with. Now, what if I were to play the E string? How would I figure out the notes on the E string? Well, all I do is change my starting point. So instead of my starting point being on the A note, my starting point is now the E note. So when I play the second string here, which is E, when it's open, now if I fret the first fret here, I've just went up a half step. Remember, in between E and F, there's no sharp or flat, so my first note here is an F. And voila, guess what? If you've played an F chord before, you'll notice that note right there is part of your F chord. So this is going to start kind of making a little bit more sense here with these chords and how they fit into the notes. And that's going to be a future video for you too. So we have the F note now in the first fret. Then we move up one more half step. That becomes F sharp or G flat. Our third note here is G. Again, another little spot here I want to show you. When you play this note, it's actually part of your G chord. So there's a G note within your G chord. Moving on from G, we have G sharp on the 4th fret, A on the 5th fret, A sharp, B. Don't say B sharp after it because the next note is C. Then we have C sharp, D, D sharp, and can you guess what that last note's going to be on the 12th fret if we're playing the E string? Yes, you're right. It is another E note. So we've correctly went through here from E all the way through the 12 notes and ended on E. So your challenge now at home is to do this on the top 2 strings. So your next string, you start on C. So you'll go through that same procedure that we just went through, starting on a C note. And the way that you can check your work is just by going to that 12th fret. And some of your ukes might only have 12th frets, which is another beautiful thing about this instrument. When you get to the 12th fret, you'll know that you've done this correctly. Memorizing these notes is a really good and important thing. But why would you actually want to do this? And then also, what are some other ways to kind of make shortcuts of how to learn these a little bit quicker? Do you always want to have to kind of count from the beginning going, all right, I'm on the A string, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. How do you actually kind of make this a little quicker? Well, the way that I do this is I like to use my dots. They're my visual markers, and they're kind of my anchor points where I know where certain notes are, so that I can figure out what the notes are around it. So for instance, we'll go back to our A string here on the bottom. Well, what I like to memorize is, well, first one is I know that my C chord is here, so that's always something I remember is my C note is where my C chord is. So when I'm down here on the A string, something I always try to remember is C. And then if I were to go up a whole step, I have another dot here on my uke on the 5th fret. So there's a visual cue for me to remember that this is a D note here on the 5th fret. So I have C, I went up a whole step, 2 frets to D. And then I'm going to find another anchor spot here on my 7th fret. I'm going to move up another whole step from D, D sharp to E. So this is a good little spot here to remember C, D, and E. That's a good little, place to remember because let's say you want to find an F note on this A string. Well, you already know where your E note is, so you know that if you can go up a half step or 1 fret, you have an F note right there. So using your dots is a good spot to kind of remember these anchor notes so that you don't always have to go A, B, C, C sharp, D. You can kind of roll through them like that quickly if you can, or let's, for instance, say we're on the E string. Well, you can do the same thing. I try to remember, well, I have E, F, G, and then when I move up here to my 5th fret, that's my A note. And I always try to remember E string, 5th fret, A note. So as you kind of write this out for yourself, you can actually go through and kind of highlight some of these spots where the dots are on your uke to help give you some visual spots to remember where your notes are. As you're starting to learn this, and this is something I did when I was kind of starting to learn the notes of the neck, you just need to sometimes spend some time practicing saying them out loud to yourself and going string by string and just sitting there and saying A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. And start learning that. Start learning your sharps and flats. Now we're going to talk about, Kevin, why are we even learning all this stuff? I just want to play songs. I just want to play chords. How is learning the notes of the neck actually going to help me? Well, I have an answer for you. Let's say you're playing chords all the time. You're playing songs all the time, but you just kind of want to add a little bit more to it. Well, this can come in handy now knowing some of these notes. Chords are played in their normal spots here in our first position. And we'll just use C as an example because most of us know the C chord. Well, let's say I'm playing the C chord, but I want to add a little something to it. Well, I know that if I'm in the key of C, I have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C as options to play in the key of C. So if I'm playing a C chord here, maybe I want to take my pinky and extend it out to the 5th fret to add a little bit of a additional note to that. So I'm playing C, and I know my D note is available to me here on the 5th fret. I can go jump over there because I know what that note is. I know that going to C sharp doesn't really sound so sweet. But if I move up from C to D, that sounds nice. It's right within the C major scale. And I do have a video on the major scale. I will also leave that in the description below because we're going to talk more about that in future videos as well. But just to kind of wrap it up here, I have C. I can extend that to a D note. I could also go out and push it out one more to an E note. And I'm using those dots as markers here. So you can do this with other chords, and I'll show you that in another video when we talk a little bit more about chords, how chords are made, and how chord extensions can actually be a part of that too. But this video is really about getting acclimated with the notes of the neck. It's great to have an understanding, and it's also great because you might come across a chord that you don't really understand why it's played the way it's played, learning the notes is going to kind of give you the foundation for kind of pulling chords apart, understanding how chords are put together, and that all of these shapes are not just mysteries. They're put there for a reason. Playing your C chord like this is done for a reason. Playing your G shape like this is mathematically done for a reason here. I'm going to put together a little PDF at allforuke.com with the notes of the neck so that you can have that and print it out, put it into your uke binder so that you can start kind of getting this, adding this into your vocabulary. Start being able to say the notes of the neck as you play them. It's just all going to help you to kind of keep learning more and more about the why. Because you've probably spent some time learning the how, you've learned songs, you've learned some chords, but now learning the notes, learning some of this terminology and vocabulary is going to start piecing things together for you. So mentally it makes a little bit more sense as to why you're doing what you're doing. So I hope you guys found this video informative. Again, I have a PDF put together at allforuke.com. You can check that out. If you like this uke that I've been using in the demo today, you can find that as well at allforuke.com in the shop. I am a Kala affiliate and an official artist as well. So if you want to check out Kala and any of their products, I have them on the website. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please do so. Click that little alert bell. Find out when the next video is coming out. We're putting out a lot of great content for you. And leave your comments below. Do you have questions on this? Or do you have any tricks that you can share to help learn these notes on the neck a little bit better? So I thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you found this informative. My name is Kevin, and I'll see you next time.